Part 90. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 900. Whether it was Xia Xiaoman or Li Qianqian, they were all dumbfounded at this moment. The bucket-thick red lightning, an unknown type of lightning, instantly penetrated Rushuan. The entire process of seeing through the trajectory of the extremely fast flying sword, making the flying sword jam into the flesh, maximizing power control skills, and explosive output took Yilin less than 5 seconds. 5 seconds later, Chao Rushuan's thin body was pierced by thunder, and he vomited blood. The Tianling cap smoked and fell downwards. The first person in Discipline Mountain. Candidate for the direct disciple of the Supreme Leader. The leader among the younger generation of elite disciples. The goddess that Jian Nanchun admires. Chao Rushuan was defeated. Defeated in an instant. Xia Xiaoman stepped on the frost snow sword, and watched helplessly as senior brother Lin, who was hanging on the wall, smashed senior sister Chao Rushuan into the dense forest with a thunderbolt. She was dumbfounded on the spot, slowly stretched out 2 fingers, and exerted all her strength. She pinched her cheek, she wondered if she was dreaming. A mere monk in the Qi stage, killed the Golden Core monk in a head-on battle? Is it that the Golden Core cultivators are not as tall as expected, or senior brother Lin Yi is exaggerating? Yilin expressionlessly pulled out Chao Rushuan's sword from her abdomen. The moment it was pulled out, a long column of blood spurted out, drawing out a long parabola. It looks like a miserable injury, but with the repairs done by distant Utopia, it's actually not painful or itchy. Yilin operated Cloud Body, and at that moment, it not only changed the structure of the muscles, but also moved the positions of important organs as much as possible. At the very least, the intestines won't leak out. Yilin covered the bloody hole in her abdomen with all her strength. With the loss of physical energy, the wound naturally stopped bleeding and was being repaired at the expected speed. With a flick of his hand, the flying sword came alive and flew downwards as if running for his life, taking the initiative to protect the master. Chao Rushuan screamed and fell into the jungle. Circles of red ripples, like shock waves, spread out in all directions with the thunder surge as the center. The powerful thunder and rapids blew away the towering ancient trees within 100 feet radius, creating a semicircular deep pit, which was like the trace left by a meteorite falling to the ground. And at this moment, Chao Rushuan's clothes were messy, her hair stood on end, and she fell into the pit. There is no longer the calmness of the past. Li Qianqian's eyes flashed when she saw this scene. She rode the spirit snake and came behind Yilin. That's enough. Don't be too showy. Li Qianqian gritted her teeth first, with a complicated look in her eyes, and whispered next to Yilin. Yilin. Li Qianqian's tone was no longer the charming and delicate one she had deliberately pretended to be before, but was slightly more scolding and harsh. Yilin was surprised. Li Qianqian's words were unclear, making Yilin feel that Li Qianqian was like a living riddle, and what he said was confusing. But before Yilin could answer, a cold light flashed in Li Qianqian's eyes, and she rode the spirit snake, transformed into a stream of light, and fell towards a messy jungle. Just when Li Qianqian made a move. Junior sister. As a burst of light rippled in the sky, Jian Nanchun's heart-wrenching voice also came over. I saw that Jian Nanchun was not alone. In addition to senior brother Jian, there was also a woman wearing black and white Lianji Taoist robes who entered the cave heaven paradise together. Li Qianqian fell into the air and failed to land completely. She paused and looked back at the 2 people who arrived in time. Li Qianqian looked back, the anger in her eyes flashed away. Hey, junior sister, who else are you talking about? Turns out to be Sister Yu. The visitor was surprisingly Yu Qingying, an elite inner sect disciple of Tai Mountain who had disappeared after several people separated on the coast of the East China Sea. Jian Nanchun leaped forward, 1 level faster than usual, and in a blink of an eye he came to Chao Rushuan, frowning and lifting Chao Rushuan up. "Damn it, junior sister, who hurt you like this?" Jian Nan Chun fell. The two girls, Yu Qingying and Li Qianqian, looked at each other. There was a faint spark of sparks between them as they looked at each other. Why does it look like a family ethics drama? When Yilin saw this messy scene, she felt like her head was spinning. Jian Nanchun took the opportunity to hold Chao Rushuan, who was injured and unconscious, and groaned. Yilin took a look and quickly turned on, following like a shadow to hide his presence. He ignored them and went to do his own important things first. At this moment, the aura and temporary attribute values accumulated by Yilin's bloodthirsty catastrophe second solution and soul clone are still in the body. The battle with Chao Rushuan did not cost too much. Yilin's life-saving ultimate move 10 death body is still there, and she has all kinds of trump cards in hand. Even though Green's few words seemed to convey a meaning of high energy ahead /. But when things came to pass, Yilin might regret it if she didn't take the risk of taking a look under the tower. Think about this. The skateboard under Yilin's feet suddenly accelerated, and in a blink of an eye, he and the skateboard jumped across the dense forest below and rushed towards the tower. The tall tower stood upright. Looking from a distance, Yilin had the illusion of returning to reality and taking a closer look at the four towers. But he knew very well that there was a huge difference between the two. Ahead, a straight tower towers into the clouds, with a tattered red tassel dancing in the wind. Yilin felt something in her heart. She raised her head and glanced up. Her pupils suddenly shrank. When she was still dozens of miles away from the straight tower, Yilin turned from parallel to straight upward and quickly pulled up to the sky. This subspace is much wider than Yilin imagined. In the blink of an eye, all that was left in the vast sea of trees beneath me was a patch of lush green. Looking down, it looked like a piece of green oilcloth spread on the ground, rising and falling. Finally, when Yilin came to the clouds and raised the height by more than 1,000 meters, he was finally able to see clearly what was at the top of the tower, where the red tassels were floating. Never imagined. Yilin was shocked. When he saw the whole tower clearly, his whole body felt like he had been hit hard and he froze on the skateboard. This. Where is the tower? This is clearly a gun, that stands tall and strong. If placed outside, this is obviously a super long spear that can break through the sky. An ancient spear with red tassels that is thousands of feet long and weighs as much as a stone. This is one of the 7 keys that Xiao 11 left behind in this world, one of the 6 artifacts that will be called by later generations. Go and try. Green is well informed, and in his eyes, the ancient Hongying gun that shocked Yilin can only be regarded as a somewhat interesting toy. At this moment, it was using a tone of it's not too big to watch the excitement, like a nightmare, following the temptation, encouraging Yilin to rush forward. You don't need to tell me. Yilin looked at the ancient red-tasseled spear, and the tremor in her eyebrows became stronger and stronger. Even if Yilin didn't enter the spiritual sea to check, he could still deduce that the only thing that could make such a noise when approaching Hongying's ancient spear was the great sword suspended above the spiritual sea, the Gailai sword. There is some connection between the 7 keys that Yilin doesn't understand yet. Gailai Jian seemed to have some kind of reaction to Hongying's ancient spear. The human emperor's seal, Gailai sword, Hongying ancient spear. Yilin was thinking about the connection between the 3. Inexplicably, he recalled in his mind one of the words Gilgamesh said in his speech at the Singularity Age of Gods. 3 years ago, our God 11 decided to challenge the Lord. She ascends to the highest level with the awareness of us all. However, the cowardly and corrupt lords, the gods who fear me, and the gods under the 4 lords launched an attack on our world. Fairy Mountain Kunlun and mysterious land Atlantis have fallen successively. In ancient times, the 3 holy places of the human race were Heavenly Palace Uruk, mysterious domain Atlantis, Fairy Mountain Kunlun. What Yilin witnessed was the fall of Uruk, but before the fall of the city of Uruk, an unknown and tragic war also took place between the fairy mountain Kunlun and the mysterious land of Atlantis. So, in the fairy mountain Kunlun and the mysterious land of Atlantis that once existed in human civilization, is there a king with the same status as Gilgamesh, and is there a legendary level similar to the Sword of Deviation? Props. The answer is, yes. So, what's Ioxy left in this world? That is. Call. Suddenly. Puff. When Yi Lin was thinking. A date struck silently from below and penetrated his heart. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 901. Phew. That's a date. An ordinary date. I don't know which tree the dates fell from. When the date penetrated the chest, passed through the heart, shattered the shoulder blade, and penetrated from the back, a second later, Yi Lin felt the severe pain, centered on the chest, beginning to spread throughout the body. From the direction where the date flies, where the vines gather, there is a naked man. He has a head of black hair that is several meters long. The messy black hair is neatly combed and spread out in all directions. From the waist down, he is strangely growing with vines. The man remained expressionless, put down his hands, and closed his eyes again. The jujube he just popped out with his fingers penetrated Yi Lin. From the beginning to the end, there was no strange expression on that face. It felt as if he had accidentally killed a small fly that was buzzing in the air, instead of killing a person. Yi Lin clutched her chest and began to fall downwards. Lying in Jian Nanchun's arms, Chao Rushuan, who was temporarily comatose due to the impact and current of freedom method thunder surge /. Suddenly he opened his eyes. Blood was bleeding from the corner of her mouth. The moment she opened her eyes, she looked at Jian Nanchun above her head, whose face was full of worry, and further away, Yu Qingying and Li Qianqian, who were facing each other in the air. Moment. Chao Rushuan's cold face was ashen as death. No. Chao Rushuan's lips quivered, and he only had time to say one word before he struggled to get up from Jian Nanchun. Get out. Chao Rushuan didn't even glance at Jian Nanchun. From the corner of her blood-soaked mouth, she squeezed out two words indifferently, then she started to run her technique and flew towards the red-tasseled ancient tree. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared in front of several people. When Li Qianqian saw Chao Rushuan fleeing away, she gritted her teeth and ignored Yu Qingying to continue the confrontation. She turned around and drove the spirit snake to chase him out silently. Jian Nanchun was confused the whole time. He didn't understand at all what happened. Not long ago, he was lost in the maze outside the cave. With his formation skills, it would be difficult to find a way out. But what a coincidence, when Jian Nanchun was wandering around in the maze like a headless fly, Yu Qingying appeared. She pinched her fingers and calculated silently, and found Jian Nanchun. Brother, come with me. Yu Qingying easily deduced the way out and brought Jian Nanchun here. Then, they all arrived at the depths of the Black Wind Sand Sea, within this mysterious paradise. As soon as he entered, Jian Nanchun was struck by the opening lightning. I saw the injured Chao Rushuan falling into the towering ancient forest. He originally thought that the injured Chao Rushuan was the most vulnerable. As long as he showed his concern at this time, Chao Rushuan would treat him better. Even if it was slightly better, Jian Nanchun would be happy. Only. At last. What Chao Rushuan left to Jian Nanchun was that indifferent back that was so familiar to Jian Nanchun, as if he was rejecting everything thousands of miles away. Yes. From the beginning. The only person Jian Nanchun knew about Chao Rushuan was his back. 20 years ago, when he was still a boy, he accidentally saw Chao Rushuan practicing swordplay on the mountain. He was also dressed in white and had that indifferent back. Later, in order to get closer to Chao Rushuan, he also used to wear Shensu's white clothes, making the two of them look more like a god couple and occupy the commanding heights of public opinion. Chao Rushuan's cold words get out were like a heavy hammer, hitting Jian Nanchun's love and longing that had been hidden for many years in the past 20 years, another severe blow. Yulin, who was falling, quickly adjusted her posture. He flew into the air again and approached Hongying Ancient Spear. One of the 7 keys is right in front of her, so how can Yulin give up so easily? During the struggle, Yulin once again stretched out his hand to the red-tasseled ancient spear, which was as tall and straight as an iron tower a few feet away. The life-saving trump card, the Body of 10 Deaths, has been activated, and the domineering trump card with the effect of locking blood is there. Yulin is not panic at all. At least, don't panic until your 10 lives are exhausted. Laugh. Below. The strange man who grew up with the vines raised his head again, with a calm expression and a flick of his finger. Another date. This date is heavier than a bullet and faster than Chao Rushuan's flying sword. Yulin's eyes only felt blurred as his forearm moved in circles, passing in front of his eyes and separated from his body. Yulin stared blankly at the arm that had separated from his body at some point. Even when the pain came, he never had the chance to show an expression of pain. Compared with pain, the emotion Yulin felt more deeply at this moment was terror. Yes. Fear. The real strength of the man below who was connected to the vines was far beyond Yulin's imagination. 2 dates, one behind the other, penetrated Yulin's heart and shattered Yulin's arm respectively. Just 2 ordinary dates. Just a little harder. Oh, not bad. Green has been standing firmly on Yulin's shoulder, like a bat on the outside, making sarcastic remarks from time to time. Although this sarcastic remark made Yulin very angry, it must be said that Green's sarcastic words diluted the fear in Yulin's heart a lot. What the hell do I have to be afraid of? In Kanzaki City, the world in the lake, the vast tentacle monsters have made Yulin feel extreme fear. Not to mention the indescribable terror, even the Grim on his shoulder is a big boss who occupies one side and is everywhere like the incarnation of a nightmare. Yulin took a deep breath, calmed down quickly, and began to think. Yes. No matter what situation you face, never forget to think. Only knowledge and wisdom are eternal. Both a Deng and Master once said similar things. The other party regards me as an ant. His 2 attacks obviously prevented me from getting close to the ancient gun. The other party's strength, converted into the apostles registered in Zyle Garden, must be above the double lock. Even, to the point of becoming a knight of the apocalypse. So, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. The worst is, I'll be reincarnated again. 18 years later, I'll be a good man again. Yulin spit out blood from the corner of her mouth and laughed 3 times. Those who are not afraid of death are arrogant. No, to be precise, the person with the resurrection coin is a tyrant. Bloodthirsty disaster 3 solutions. Bloodthirsty disaster 4 solutions. Bloodthirsty disaster 5 solutions. With each piece of blood, it merges into the body. Yulin quickly used her physical abilities to reach the top by adding points. Strength attribute, breaking through a layer of lock. Mental attributes have reached the double lock bottleneck. So far. Oh. The naked man on the vine raised his head, and a trace of confusion flashed in his dark eyes. Xiao Hong. Noob. Xiao Mei. The 3 mother spirits who were working hard on the big sword in the spiritual center were connected with Yulin's mind and felt Yulin's call at the same time. They appear next to Yulin in a mini form, live and die with Yulin, and face everything in front of them together. Master. The 3 female spirits spoke in unison. Yulin chewed blood, but at this moment, he felt like he had been reborn, and his smile was particularly bright. This was once again that he completely abandoned the concerns of life and death. In order to achieve his goal, he turned on all his power and challenged an unknown existence. If a person is not crazy, he will waste his youth. After reviving his life, the young man's mentality became more than 10 years younger without even realizing it. Yilin looked at the three mother spirits, and every detail of her encounter with them came to her mind again after 14 years. So Yilin smiled and said, "Maybe I'm not strong enough, but I'm not fighting alone." Bai Xiao reminded, "Master, don't forget, you still have a big sword inside. Let's talk about it after we can pull it out." Yilin closed her eyes. Blood light shot into the sky, murderous intent spread, and the red windbreaker, like a blazing fire, burned downward from Yilin's shoulders, and finally condensed into shape. Wandering arms. Cloud body and wind body. Moon destroyer cannon. The two revolvers merged into one, turning into a moon-destroying cannon several meters long. Xiao Hong and Xiao Bai became the power of Yilin to fire. Xiao Mei felt uncomfortable. "Master, where am I? Look at me and cheer me up." Yilin said, pulling the trigger hard. Boom! A blazing hot light seemed to split the subspace in half. Far away. Whether it is Chao Rushuan who is rushing here quickly, or the sad Jian Nanshan on the ground, or Li Qianqian, who is chasing Chao Rushuan, or maybe it's the silent Yu Qingying. Several people who arrived at this mysterious cave all raised their heads in unison at this moment, looking at it in surprise. A dazzling light came from above, splitting the scenery in front of him into two. Facing the blazing bombardment, the man on the vine frowned. He didn't throw any more dates, but raised his hand towards the light cannon. That hand was like cracked soil, covered with strange cracks. In the crack, the blood dried up, and new blood seeped out, covering the old blood, forming a colorful, strange, layered red blood. "Be merciful. He is my fellow disciple." When Chao Rushuan realized what she was doing, she shouted in shock to the man on the ground. Chao Rushuan did this because she was afraid that the man would kill Yilin and plead for him. The light cannon drowned everything. The moon destroyer cannon's range of lethality is even greater than 30 layers of supercharged bullets with full firepower. After firing this shot, Yilin suddenly jumped forward without thinking. Under suppressed fire, Zayazai, who had blocked Yilin from approaching Hong Ying's ancient spear twice before, finally stopped attacking again. And Yilin's hand was pressed on Hong Ying's ancient spear as she wished. The Kuolai sword, which had been trembling in the mental center, stopped trembling. It's just like. At this moment, the Gailai sword and the ancient Hong Ying spear in front of him reached some strange resonance. The trembling stopped. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Xueshi. Chapter 902. The strange man on the vine put more pressure on Yilin than he imagined. Just 2 dates made Yilin blush. Yilin conservatively estimated that it would be difficult to completely kill the opponent with the moon destroyer cannon fired at full power. But Yilin's purpose is not to kill the other party. He was just trying to buy time. Under fire suppression, even for just 1 second, it was enough for Yilin. Time seemed to have stopped in an instant. When Yilin placed his hand on Hong Ying's ancient spear, everything between heaven and earth was silent. The wind in the mountains. Clouds in the sky. Man on the ground. Fellow disciples from afar. All was quiet. The Kuolai sword staying in the pivot stopped trembling. But the next moment, the shaking came again. This time, it was not the Gailai sword that was trembling, but the ancient red-tasseled spear that towered in front of me like a giant tower. Yilin's guess was correct. Hong Ying ancient gun is one of the 7 keys left by Xiao 11. When Yilin touched the Hong Ying ancient gun, the attribute panel that he missed and was familiar with once again appeared in front of his eyes. The Clock of the Earth Zeus Yen. Level Legend, 7/7. Durability 4245/10,000. Restrictions: only those with the fate of Tianxia Lone Star can be used freely. Effect: use points to break the surface, invincible. Explanation: yes, this is one of the keys. One cannot generalize between legends and legends. Yilin is now certain that after Xiao 11 left this world, she left 7 legendary items here. The first one is the Human Emperor's seal. Since it does not have the qualification of the Human Emperor, that thing has no other uses except for sealing. The second item is the Gailai sword. Yilin has seen the power of the original Gailai sword with her own eyes, so naturally she is very greedy. But the legendary prop Lily sword, which was in good condition, was in a damaged state at the moment. The 3 mother spirits rubbed it tirelessly for a while, but could not successfully remove the rust on it. In short, it is not useful for the time being. This third item, although its name is a bit corny, the Immortal Killing Spear. But whether it's corny or not, that doesn't matter. The important thing is, judging from its attributes, this legendary item seems to be usable. What is Tianxia Lonely Star? It doesn't sound like a big problem. There are only a handful of legendary items that Yilin has ever touched with her own hands. On the Caribbean Sea, he once touched Poseidon's trident. Due to the damage of the legendary items, he later used glue to force them together. While using them reluctantly, he also lost the original restrictions. As a result, Yilin was able to use the power of Immortal to drive the legendary equipment and control the power of the sea. But based on several experiences, Yilin discovered that there are significant differences between legendary props and non-legendary props. That is, the attribute descriptions of legendary items are vague and not detailed enough to be digitized. In other words, the prop effects of legendary props are likely to be unable to be completely digitized by Zyle Garden's rules. What is a legend? This is a legend. Once you have it, you can become a legend. And this Immortal Killing Spear will become Yilin's second legendary prop. Gun, come. The young man was high-spirited. Even though one of his hands was broken, he still smiled and placed his hand on the huge ancient gun. Rumble. Following the boy's movements, the ground shook, and with the spear as the center, bottomless ravines opened in all directions. The gun was pulled out. As for the fate of Tianxia Lone Star in restrictions, Yilin ignored it at a glance. What kind of restriction is this? It's nothing more than limitations reflected on the panel, such as charm and luck. It's not important, just pull it out and talk about it later. Ground. Wherever the moon-killing cannon passed, it left a 10-meter wide scorch mark. Within the scorch mark, terrifying high temperature and heat are steaming, and the light is distorted in it. But only the strange man growing with the vines, within a few meters of him, was safe and sound. Looking down from a high place, the surroundings of the man with vines look like a lonely boat in the vast sea, looking out of place. He blocked the moon destroyer cannon with just one hand. With one hand, he easily blocked the terrifying high temperature and heat wave of the moon destroyer cannon. At this moment, he raised his head blankly and looked at the young man high in the air, who had one arm attached to the ancient spear and was trying to pull the Immortal Killing Spear from the ground. He did not stop him or make any other movements. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, the naked man on the vine laughed happily. Smiling, 2 lines of muddy tears slipped from the corners of his eyes. Chao Rushuan was also shocked. She stared blankly at the young man in the air who was trying to draw his gun. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. The ground is cracked, and the crust under the ancient forest is shaking violently. Blocks of the ground began to sink suddenly as the ground cracked, but while the ground blocks were being squeezed, some crooked ancient trees were pushed up from the ground. In the blink of an eye, as the spear was pulled out from the ground, the huge ancient forest looked like it had been after the earthquake, and it no longer felt like a paradise in the beginning. As the world changes dramatically. Jian Nanshan, Xia Ziomen, Li Qianqian, and Yu Qingying came here one after another. Chao Rushuan looked at the scorch marks left by the moon-destroying cannon on the ground, which spread all the way to the end of the ancient forest. Her eyes twitched for a moment. She came to the side of the vine man in disbelief and asked in a low voice, "Are you okay? Are you worried that I will attack your fellow disciples?" The man laughed. Chao Rushuan lowered his head in acquiescence. "Ha ha ha." The man laughed heartily again. Yilin was still drawing his gun, his black hair flying. The immortal killing spear was being lifted up little by little, and with Yilin's movements, the size of the immortal killing spear was shrinking little by little. Li Qianqian rolled her eyes and had a different idea. She rode the spirit snake and came to Yilin's side quickly like a stream of light. "Junior brother, do you need help from senior sister?" Li Qianqian has charming eyes and a burning heart. Now anyone can see that the giant object that Lin Yi is touching must be an ancient magic weapon beyond imagination. If it wasn't an ancient super magic weapon, how could it have such special effects that could cause the earth to shake and the sky to collapse? It would be hypocritical to say that monks are not greedy for magic weapons. Even when Jian Nanchun came back to his senses, he wanted to step forward and fight for it for a moment. But who allowed him to have a good relationship with Lin Yi? Furthermore, he was more concerned about Chao Rushuan's safety than the magic weapon. At this moment, Jian Nanchun was watching Chao Rushuan, whom he had been thinking about, standing next to a strange man. Chao Rushuan was talking in a low voice. The man whose lower body was connected with vines looked up to the sky and smiled. The relationship between the two made Jian Nanchun think deeply. And wonder. The other end. Li Qianqian came a few meters away from Yilin. He just asked Yilin if he needed help. Without waiting for Yilin's answer, he quickly stretched out his hand, imitating Yilin's gesture of placing his palm on the ancient gun, and moved forward. "Oh, that's fine." Yilin showed a kind smile, kept her posture unchanged, pursed her lips, and signaled to Li Qianqian, "You can go ahead." Snored. Li Qianqian was not a fool. She could read the sarcasm beneath Yilin's innocent appearance at a glance, snorted coldly, and clapped her hand. But the next second, Li Qianqian was just about to fight for the immortal killing spear. When his fair and flexible palm touched the giant's stick, it felt like it was penetrated by high-voltage electricity. His whole body shook violently, his eyes rolled up, and white spittle spewed out from the corner of his mouth. The next moment, Li Qianqian screamed, as fast as he came, it was even faster when he left. Like a limp brothel woman, Li Qianqian flew out together with the spirit snake under her. Why bother? Yilin shook his head and sighed, watching helplessly as the blood spit out by Li Qianqian stained the air. The famous gun has its owner, and there is someone behind me. Do you dare to rob this? Aren't you afraid of death? Ding. There was a slight ding in Yilin's ear, and the immortal killing spear that stood tall on the ground shrank into a stick and floated beside Yilin. At this moment, Yilin finally established a connection with the immortal killing spear. He flipped his hand and the immortal killing spear was not stored in the storage space, but appeared above the spiritual sea. Together with the rusty Gailai sword, it rotated in the center. In the center of the inner oasis, a frightening blood-colored light emanated from the entire body. The murderous aura made Yilin frightened after just a little exploration. He couldn't imagine how earth-shattering power it would be if he stabbed someone with this big treasure gun whose effect was marked as breaking through the surface with 1 point, indestructible. This is a legend. A legendary weapon that can really be used to stab people. This is a legend that Yilin possesses in a true sense without any restrictions. With him, he is a legend. Yilin hid the fatigue deep in her eyes, and with a thought, she took the severed arm into her hand and connected it at the cross-section with force. After pulling out the immortal killing spear, in situ, a bottomless hole about 1 mile in diameter was left behind. Gulls spread all around, bare soil was turned up, and hundreds of feet of broken ancient trees were lying around the cracks. There was a mess everywhere. Yilin thanked Miriam while waiting for distant Utopia to repair her injuries. At the same time, he was also wary of the Vine Man next to Chao Rushuan who killed him twice, leaving Yilin unable to even use his life-saving skills. After a while. At this moment, Yilin was carrying the legendary treasure and was full of confidence. She shouted loudly. "Senior Sister Chao, I think you owe us a reasonable explanation." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 903. Raising his head towards Rushuan. For the first time, strong emotional fluctuations appeared in those cold and waveless eyes. Yilin was far away, and it was difficult to distinguish the meanings of such complicated eyes from her eyes. But at this moment, Chao Rushuan conveyed a tangled emotion to Yilin. "Junior brother, congratulations." Li Qianqian clutched her chest, wiped the blood from the corners of her mouth, and returned to the battlefield with messy hair. She never mentioned the matter of stealing the magic weapon just now, but she could even congratulate her shamelessly. Immediately afterwards, Jian Nanshan, Xia Xiaoman, and Yu Qingying were flying in the sky respectively. "Stand with Yilin." Jian Nanshan glanced at Chao Rushuan who was silent, then quietly came up behind Yilin and poked Yilin's waist. "My good junior brother, what's the situation of junior sister Chao now? By the way, that magic weapon you just had, what level is it? Can you show it to senior brother?" It seems that Jian Nanshan places super magic weapon and Chao Rushuan in an equally important position. In one sentence, mention two things. For the first question, I don't know. For the second question, the little magic weapon is nothing more than Tinpin Er, so don't mention it, don't show it. Tinpin. Let's not talk about whether it is appropriate to use the word mere to describe the Tinpin magic weapon. Are you telling lies with your eyes open? How can a heavenly magic weapon be that big? Do you really think that senior brother Benjian has never seen a heavenly magic weapon? Just pulling it out can cause the ground to crack. How could it be just a top-grade thing? Senior brother Jian Nanshan felt so angry. He thought that there should not be such a gap between him and junior brother Lin because of their close relationship. But before he could express his opinion, Yilin stared directly at Chao Rushuan below and said in a deep voice, "It seems that that man is the secret that senior sister Chao has been hiding." Chao Rushuan, secret, and man, three key words, suddenly attracted Jian Nanshan's attention from the magic weapon. Sure enough, Chao Rushuan is more important. Shuang Jian Nanshan said two words with deep affection and trembling voice. Chao Rushuan took a deep breath. She knew that no matter what, she couldn't hide it today. Chao Rushuan quickly calmed down again, her eyes were as calm as the ancient well, and her heart was as still as water. Senior brother Jian. Junior brother Lin. Junior sister Xia. Li Qianqian. Yu Qingying. Chao Rushuan's cold eyes scanned the faces of several people one by one and named them one by one. Chao Rushuan is here today, and I only ask for one thing from the five of you. If you can keep the secret for Chao Rushuan today, from now on, if Rushuan can fulfill your request, you will never frown. I just ask. You are so tight-lipped about it? After Chao Rushuan finished speaking, he knelt on the ground expressionlessly. Snapped. She knelt so hard that the moment her knees made contact with the ground, her knees made a crisp sound like fractures. Junior sister. Jian Nanshan took a look and saw that Chao Rushuan, who used to be as proud as an iceberg goddess, was now kneeling on the ground for such a secret and begging several people to keep today's secret. This really exceeded Jian Nanshan's expectations and was completely unexpected. Several people were silent. Suddenly, after crying and laughing, he neither revealed his identity nor attacked Yilin again. The strange man whose lower body was covered with vines raised his head and looked somewhere in the sky. At the same time, Yu Qingying also sighed softly. It was impossible for the man and Yu Qingying to have any kind of understanding, but at this moment, facing Chao Rushuan's plea, the two of them actually said the same sentence at the same time. Late. Late. The moment Yu Qingying and the Vine Man finished speaking, a sword of cold light fell from the sky. Wow! The dazzling white light tore open the sky and struck the man. Well done. The man laughed and pushed Chao Rushuan away with a palm. Chao Rushuan grunted and was pushed hundreds of miles away in the blink of an eye. Yilin, Xiaoziaomen, Yu Qingying, and Li Qianqian all had flowers blooming in front of them at the same time. When their vision was restored, the four of them were horrified to find that they had left the cave and returned to the black wind and sand sea. Hoo hoo! The wind roared in my ears, and the black sand was raging between the sky and the earth. As soon as the four people appeared, they found themselves in the characteristic black sandstorm of the black wind sand sea. The black sand, suffused with terrifying aura, was attacking indiscriminately, frantically reducing the four people's protective skills. In a hurry, Yilin only had time to set up 4 or 5 layers of defense. He lowered his head and found that Xiaoziaomen was protected by the frost snow sword and was hiding in a layer of light shield. He was okay for the time being. But the sudden and violent consumption of real energy made Xiaoziaomen, who was already poor in cultivation, even worse. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of virgin blood. Come over. The four of them were like a lonely boat in a tsunami in the black wind and sand, looking helpless. Yilin glanced at Xiaoziaomen and waved to Xiaoziaomen, asking her to come over. In fact, his beckoning was not an instruction to Xiaoziaomen, but to Frost Snow Sword. Xiaoziaomen has little experience and cannot react quickly enough to emergencies. Now she is no better than a flying sword. Sure enough, Frost Snow Sword has a high IQ and a profound aura. It knows that the master it takes the initiative to shed blood to recognize its master has a shallow cultivation. When it sees Yilin's gesture, it doesn't care whether this behavior can be called bowing down in submission, hurriedly shaking the sword, lifted Xiaoziaomen to Yilin's side. Anyway, it's just a sword, nothing more than a sword. What's the point of talking about face and dignity? After protecting Xiaoziaomen, Yilin didn't bother to care about how the other 3 golden elixir monks resisted the black wind and sand. While calculating the consumption of spiritual energy, he raised his head and looked at the sky. I saw. Now. A man of light stands proudly between heaven and earth. The light man has hazy outlines of eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, resembling an unfinished doll. The light man was wearing a Taoist robe that was also made of light. It held 2 fingers and waved a 3-foot-long halo of light on its fingertips. In the eyes of several people, the long and narrow halo of light was like a scorching sun, reflecting layers of halos. No, it's not so much a scorching sun, but a sword. A lightsaber. In the dark environment, the light man and the light sword became the only light between heaven and earth. Li Qianqian, Jian Nanchun, and Yu Qingying are all Jindan monks after all. Although the black wind and sand are extremely terrifying, for them, they may be eaten alive over time, but they can still protect themselves in the short term. After stabilizing their bodies, the 3 of them couldn't help but take a breath of cold air mixed with black sand, with different expressions. Jian Nanchun said in shock. It's the Supreme Sect Leader's divine sword Tong Xing. How come it appears here? Li Qianqian's eyes flickered, but the surprise on his face could not be concealed. The Master's supreme divine sword Tong Xing is said to be able to descend somewhere in the world with all its strength, with the sky above its head and the earth under its feet, just like the Master himself descending. Who is the man in the cave that can make the Supreme Leader, who never leaves the mountain, descend here in the form of a divine sword that penetrates all shapes? After Yilin protected Xiaoziaomen and remained silent for a moment, he suddenly looked at Yu Qingying, who was also silent, and asked, "It seems that senior sister Yu has known about this for a long time." Yu Qingying nodded. Around her, there were faint black and white shadows of Lianji Taiji, rippling around. I saw her looking up at the light and shadow in the sky with a look of great admiration, and murmured. Before Yu Qingying came down from the mountain, he received the secret order from the master's sect to find out the traitor inside the sect who was having an affair with the demon sect. And this traitor is Chao Rushuan. At this moment, the supreme leader of the sect takes action personally to clean up the sect. The words reached everyone's ears. Xia Xiaomen closed her eyes hard. She had little to do with this matter and just wanted to end it quickly. But she was also confused. Senior Sister Chao Rushuan was a traitor to the demon sect. Behind a few people, Li Qinqin's delicate body trembled slightly, but after a brief moment of shock, she suddenly smiled like a flower. Since you are a traitor, you deserve to die. No. Jian Nanchun's hair was disheveled and he let out a shrill scream. He doesn't believe it. How could Chao Rushuan be a traitor? He doesn't believe it. Without waiting for a few people to react. In the air, the supreme divine sword shape of Tianjian sect is as if the master is personally present, knowing everything around him as well as the palm of his hand. She looked back at the people in the black sandstorm and pressed down with her other hand. In an instant, the wind and waves were calm, and the raging black sandstorm was densely packed, one particle at a time. The black dust in the sky floated clearly in the eyes of several people. Time seemed to have stopped, and the quiet black sandstorm turned into motionless black spots in the eyes of the 5 people. It feels like there is something wrong with the vision and there is sand in the retina. The originally dark sky turned bright in the blink of an eye. In the sky and on the ground, there was only black sand that was frozen and motionless. The next second, black sand filled the sky like rain. After the wind stopped, millions of black sands fell back into the sea of sand like heavy rain. This is the sealing combat power of Tianjian section. Yilin squinted her eyes in this way, trying to see clearly the human-sized light person in the sky. In the blink of an eye, everything changes. The terrifying black sandstorm is like a toy in the other party's hands, stopping at the drop of a hat. This is the sealing. The magical power that truly belongs to the Qi refiner. After the leader, the Supreme Master, put his hands to stop the black sandstorm, he seemed to have done an insignificant thing. Her other hand, that beam of light. The lightsaber that tore open the curtain of the cave sky was slowly raised and then gently lowered. This sword. It seems that everything in the cave is going to be destroyed. Including the Vine Man. Including Chao Rushuan. Kill them all with the sword. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 904. Between Heaven and Earth. Only the light of the sword was left. Before the Supreme Master's sword fell, Yilin would even have thoughts such as, is this sword fast or not? Is this sword strong? Is this sword bright, and so on. It was nothing more than curiosity. Curious about this world, ceiling level combat power. But when the leader, the supreme leader, raised his hand and struck the sword towards the cave, the doubts swirling in Yilin's mind seemed to disappear in the blink of an eye with the fall of the sword. It doesn't matter whether it's fast or not, strong or not, fierce or not, this sword cannot be described with such popular adjectives. Rather, when the sword fell, Yilin felt that no matter whether someone blocked it or not, no matter whether the leader changed his mind midway. And the moment she raised her sword, the outcome was already decided. If there is a cause, there must be an effect. A sword. Fall. The barrier of the cave sky was split open into a cave by that sword. The huge spiritual energy gathered into a stream, roared, surged up from the split cave, and shot straight into the sky. The clouds in the sky were instantly opened into a cloud cave by the spiritual energy pouring out of the cave. It's a pity that it's not your true body that has come here. The demonic morning 9 heavens. A dark giant stood up from the cave. On the giant's dark face, 2 red lights looked like 2 murderous eyes. The giant stood up suddenly. His body of several hundred feet stood tall against the sky, and with one claw, he grabbed the falling sword light. When the two touched, a violent sound was made. Several people who were watching the battle in the distance heard only a buzz sound in their ears when the word in demo morning 9 heavens fell heavily. The echo continued, and then they heard no more sound. In the blink of an eye, things have changed before their eyes. Opening and closing his eyes, Yilin was surprised to find that they were moved to the edge of the black wind sand sea again. Not far away are the coordinates he left behind when he entered the sea of sand. If this great shift of the universe is the magical power of the Supreme Leader, then the cultivation level of the Supreme Leader is astonishing. Although Yilin seems to be just a newbie in the Qi stage, in fact, he is an extraordinary person who has unlocked a layer of locks. Even so, Super Lin Yi was moved around like a child in the hands of the Supreme Leader, which made Yilin shocked inwardly, and her surprise was beyond words. So terrible. This is the ceiling. Raising her head again, Yilin looked into the depths of the sand sea. In the black wind and sand sea, there are no clouds, and there is no more raging wind and sand. In the distance, two different colors of light, black and white, collided crazily in the depths of the sand sea, sometimes rising into the sky and sometimes hitting the ground, forming terrifying mushroom clouds. They flew in the black wind and sand sea for 10 days and 10 nights. The mushroom cloud in the distance is clearly visible due to the battle between the two strong men, like a small mushroom growing in front of you. You can imagine how magnificent it would be if you were at the center of the intersection of the two forces. Scene. I must break through the double lock as soon as possible. Yilin was a little disappointed, but also a little excited. In short, Yilin's mood is very complicated at this moment. At the same time, Yilin was more certain of one thing. Although the body of the Supreme Leader is not here, she used some kind of magical power similar to the mind body to come here from a distance of thousands of miles. But Yilin understood one thing through the vague and subtle reactions of two legendary items, the Deliver Sword and the Xuxian Spear. The head of the Supreme Lord also has a key left by Xiao 11. One of the 6 divine weapons. In other words, the leader, the Supreme Master, also has a legend in his hands. Is that the lead lightsaber? How does she use it? After Yilin understood this, more questions arose in her heart. The legendary props left behind by Xiao 11 are like locked treasure troves. There is no corresponding way to open them, and ordinary people cannot use them at all. But the leader, the Supreme, held the lightsaber in his hand and not only used it, he also used it extremely magnificently. Yilin felt flustered at the thought of snatching the legendary lead lightsaber from such a ceiling-level figure. How is this different from Twilight of the Gods difficulty? The human emperor's seal, the immortal killing spear, the Gailai sword, and the lead lightsaber in the hands of the Supreme Leader. Currently, there are 4 known keys. Yilin thought. No matter how difficult it is to collect them all, as long as they are found, it can barely be called good news. I do not know how long it has been. Maybe for a moment. The scene in front of him was only black and white light waves and undulating sand dunes. Jian Nanchun watched and then suddenly silently took his sword into the air and rushed into the depths of the sand sea again. Madness. Yu Qingying sighed softly and made a fair evaluation of Jian Nanchun's behavior. Senior brother, us. Although Xia Xiaoman was young, she was not stupid, and she could see that Jian Nanchun was going to do something stupid. Sit tight, we can't interfere. Yilin closed her eyes and said calmly. He decided to wait and see. Although he covets the key in the hands of the Supreme Master, he is just as coveted as he covets the human emperor's seal in junior sister's arms. But he knew that greed was greed, and if he rashly snatched it now, he would be courting death. Now, it's not time for a showdown. As for Jian Nanchun's actions, it was his own choice. He didn't ask for help from anyone. First, he knew that others couldn't help, but there was no need to drag others down. A moment of silence. Facing the depressed Xiaoman, Yilin smiled and rubbed her junior sister's hair, and said with a smile, "Every cause must have a result. The cause sown with deep love will only bear bitter fruits. Senior brother, what you said, is almost the same as Zen Master Kuya back then." Really? Deep in the sand sea. Huge whirlpools were spinning crazily on the desert. Under the desert, ravines opened up under the torn force of the two forces. When the desert poured into the ravines, springs also emerged from the ground, reforming deep pools and lakes of different sizes in the desert. The power of the two was so terrifying that it completely transformed the desert terrain beyond recognition. The barrier of the cave was torn open by the Supreme Leader with violence. Around the barrier, at the link between the two spaces, there were two completely different scenes. The black giant looks like the sky and the earth, still contending with the leader's supreme sword light. Chao Rushuan braved the terrible shockwave, approached again, plopped down, and knelt on the ground with all his strength. "Master, it is clear that my disciple has never betrayed the master," said loudly towards Rushuan. High in the sky, the light man transformed by the leader's supreme supernatural power paused for a moment in his sword swing. The lower body of the man who was fighting against the supreme leader was still connected to the vines, but many of the vines on the ground were cut off by the raging white sword light. From the broken part of the vine, red and green sap gushes out. From the strangely colored sap, a pungent smell of blood pours out, spreading throughout the sky. A figure flew over. "It's Jianan Chun." Jianan Chun started to kneel from a distance. "Master, please show mercy with your sword." "Well." The Supreme Leader sighed sadly and swept out his sword, blowing Jianan Chun dozens of miles away. Jianan Chun spurted blood from his mouth and flew backwards, but quickly stood up tenaciously, approached the center of the battle between the two again, and knelt down again. "Master, please show mercy with your sword." Confused disciple, no regrets. Click. The remaining power of the sword easily broke Jianan Chun's legs. Going back and forth, Jianan Chun's whole body was torn apart by the aftermath of the sword light. His white clothes had already turned into bloody clothes and turned into blood-stained rags hanging on his body. He dragged his twisted legs and lay on the ground. His mouth was like a leaky faucet, with blood pouring out. I saw Jianan Chun being swept away by the leader's supreme sword light again, and then flying back tenaciously, landing heavily on the desert from the air, lying on his stomach in a miserable state. Finally, Jianan Chun begged in a vague tone. Master, there must be some misunderstanding, please, Supreme Master, show mercy. Jianan Chun is willing to guarantee with his life. Rushao Rushuan is really a traitor to the Tianjian section. I, Jianan Chun, am willing to sacrifice my life to compensate. In the air, the light man transformed by the leader's supreme supernatural power raised his sword again. But this time, the sword did not fall. The walls of the cave had already been completely blown to pieces. The ancient forest in the fragmented space strangely overlapped with the desert, becoming a messy oasis in the desert. The man growing together with the vines was crying and laughing, looking crazy. Snort. The leader hesitated for a moment, and finally snorted coldly. With a push of her right palm, a stream of white light swept away Chao Rushuan and Jianan Chun, who were kneeling in different places, making them disappear in place. The stream of light flashed like a lightship in the sky, whizzing past Xia Xiaoman, Lin Yi, Yu Qingying, and Li Qianqian at the edge of the sand sea. The next second, almost in no particular order, everyone disappeared into the sea of black wind and sand. It's over, finally, it's over. The shaking of the sand sea continues. Like a bottomless pit of quicksand, it swallows everything up. Thick vines pulled the man's upper body and sank to the sandy bottom. The man laughed, letting the quicksand drag him into the dark abyss. Half a day later. In the black wind and sandy sea. The wind picked up again. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 905. Yilin felt like she was on a boat. He patted the bottom of his butt hard. It was soft, like a high-end sofa bed. There was a vast white light all around, and it was like a tunnel in front of me. The light passed by quickly and disappeared into an infinitely distant dot behind. He and Xiaoman were both wrapped in light and moving at high speed in a certain direction. What kind of magic weapon is this? Yilin looked around, sizing up the weird magic weapon. The magic weapon thrown by the Supreme Leader enveloped them in light in the blink of an eye, moving at high speed through some way across space. Since the appearance of the Supreme Leader's Excalibur, Green has been hiding for no reason. Up to this point, Yilin didn't dare to do anything strange, for fear of being pressed down by the ceiling. This is a magic weapon that can move across space at high speed. After observing for a while, Yilin came to a conclusion and became greedy again. There are too many good things in Tianjianmen today. First, a large rusty sword was dug out from the sword mound. The imperial seal in Junior Sister's arms. The lightsaber in the hands of the Supreme Leader. Just in the Tianjian sect alone, you can complete less than half of the collection trophies left by Xiao 11 across 5,000 years. Yilin's face was calm, but she was thinking about something else in her heart. She wiped the corners of her mouth to avoid drooling. While he was greedy, Yilin was distracted, recalling everything that happened in the black wind and sand sea, and clearing his mind. After struggling for a month, it turns out that this so-called going down the mountain is an immortal version of fishing law enforcement. In short, the process is roughly. Through some clues, Tianjian sect suspects that there is a traitor in the sword sect. Assuming that Yu Qingying is the one who fished for law enforcement, then the rest of the people are all suspects. Including Jian Nanshan, Lin Yi, Xia Xiaoman. However, Lin Yi and Xia Xiaoman had clean backgrounds. One was from a mountain village and the other was from the palace. They both had traces to trace, and their suspicions were relatively low. They were most likely brought along to confuse the undercover. The more suspicious ones may be Jian Nanshan, Chao Rushuan, and Li Qianqian. In the end, Chao Rushuan's undercover identity was confirmed. After sorting it out clearly, Yilin felt that the whole process was complicated and unnecessary. He really didn't believe it. With the supreme cultivation of the leader, there were few spells that could search the memory. Or, can't bear it? Yilin held her chin, feeling puzzled by the behavior of the righteous man. An ocean away. Tianjianmen. In the fairy mountain. The supreme mountain top. In the belly of the mountain, the head of the supreme sect, with grey hair, slowly opened his eyes. She was inside the black mountain wall, but she knew everything about it. With a wave of her hand, a crack opened out of thin air above the supreme mountain, and from the crack, a palm-sized light shuttle emerged. The supreme mountain hangs high on the highest point of the Fairy Island Mountains. On the supreme mountain, there are many mountains, shaped like a basin, with a black and white platform in the center. The light shuttle is like a leaf. When it appears, it quickly spits out a few small dots. A few small dots grew from small to large as the light shuttle fell, and in a blink of an eye they became human-like. Lin Yi, Jian Nanshan, Xia Xiaoman, Chao Rushuan, Li Qianqian, and Yu Qingying landed on the black and white Lianji platform. Among several people, Yilin, Jian Nanshan, Chao Rushuan, and Li Qianqian looked a little embarrassed. Yilin had a lot of injuries on her body, and there were holes in her clothes. Among them were the injuries left by Chao Rushuan and the injuries left by the vine monster. Fortunately, the broken arm had been reattached, otherwise it would have been even worse. Jian Nanchun had long lost his former grace. He was lying on the ground covered in blood, his legs were broken from the knees down, and he was so limp that it felt painful to see him. Li Qianqian's embarrassment was entirely his own fault. When he was fighting for the Zhu Xian spear, he was knocked out and his hair was blown away. Senior brother Lin. Your injury. Xiaoman didn't pay attention to the moving light shuttle just now. Now it landed. When Xia Xiaoman saw the injuries on Yilin's body, he was so anxious that he almost cried. Yilin silently hit the junior sister on the head and pointed at Jian Nanchun, who was lying on the ground next to him and was obviously even more miserable. Let's worry about senior brother Jian first. Xia Xiaoman was stunned and thought to himself that senior brother Lin's words were reasonable. But she didn't have time to pay attention to brother Jian. From all directions of the immortal island, 3 figures wearing different clothes quickly flew into the air and flew towards the supreme mountain. In the blink of an eye, they came closer from a distance and landed on the platform of Lianji Square. The 3 figures are. Bai Pang from the Commandment Mountain is an old acquaintance, so I won't introduce him much here. There is a skinny old man with a white beard in Spirit Beast Mountain named Mu Lingkong who has a smile on his face. When he is bored in the mountain, he teases his 6-legged ice toad and has no other bad habits. A one-armed Taoist also came to Mount Tai. His real name was Ominous and he was known as the Taoist. When Yilin was studying in Mount Tai, she always felt that this Taoist was mysterious and mysterious. He hid at home all day, like a senior otaku, so he didn't think much about it. Familiar. When the 3 elders landed, they did not immediately pay attention to Yilin and others in the center of the square. Instead, they simultaneously raised their hands in the direction of one of the mountain peaks. See the leader. After the 3 elders said these words in unison, they maintained the posture of bowing their heads and cupping their hands, not daring to move. No need to be polite. After a few breaths, until the leader's cold and ruthless voice came from the belly of the mountain, the 3 elders raised their heads at the same time, waiting for the leader to deal with the disciples. Chao Rushuan, who doesn't distinguish between black and white, was bewitched by the demon sect, and was imprisoned for 3 years. After 3 years, we will make a decision. Bai Taixin was originally worried. He never expected that his proud disciple would be related to the traitor. When he arrived, he had already prepared for the worst. Unexpectedly, the leader's handling made Bai Taixin almost unable to hold back her laughter. In the words of the leader, Chao Rushuan has not yet been accused of being a traitor. It just means I don't distinguish between black and white, and I am bewitched by the devil. As for being imprisoned for 3 years? What is the punishment for being imprisoned for 3 years? When Li Qianqian heard the master's light punishment, he was about to stand up and say something. The smiling little old man with a white beard, Mu Lingkong, raised his palm in the air with a smile, pressed down Li Qianqian's knees, and let Li Qianqian stand up. Qianqian knelt on the ground again. Li Qianqian didn't know what her master meant by this move, so she could only grit her teeth to suppress her unhappiness and remain silent. Inside the mountain. After the leader, the supreme leader, finished dealing with Chao Rushuan, he asked the other elders to take the lead. After bringing them back from the Black Wind Sand Sea, they mainly dealt with Chao Rushuan, and the others were fine. For now, this matter is over. The main reason was that Bai Taixin was under a lot of pressure. After all, among the disciples who went out, there were only 3 from his sect. As Yilin listened, she suddenly felt something was wrong. Wait a moment. He is now in the sect and still has the status of a registered disciple. In principle, he does not belong to any lineage. Here comes the question. Who will take him away? When Yilin's expression changed slightly, Bai Taixin gratefully took Chao Rushuan, Xia Xiaoman, and Jian Nanchun away. Jian Nanchun's injury probably meant that he would have to go to Baiko Mountain to seek some elixir from that stingy old man Liang Chen. Otherwise, even if the leg could be saved, it might still have some hidden dangers. Senior brother, Xiaoman is gone. Yulin, hurry up, don't wait. Xia Xiaoman. After Xia Xiaoman said goodbye, he was reluctantly taken away by Bai Tianxin. She missed Yulin's cooking skills very much. After saying goodbye today, I don't know when I will be able to enjoy my senior brother's unique cooking again. Yulin waved her hand and told her junior sister to get out of here. Mu Lingkong took Li Qianqian with him. The trickster carries the clear shadow of the moon. As one disciple after another was taken away by the elders, Yulin felt that the outcome of this matter was inexplicable. Just when he was thinking about pretending to be stupid and sneaking away with an elder, the voice from inside the mountain hesitated for a moment, and the final decision was made. On Yulin. Lin Yi, stay. The leader's cold voice rippled through the heaven and earth. The three elders who were walking very fast in mid-air looked surprised at the same time when they heard the sentence, and looked back at the lonely Lin Yi in the square. They naturally knew Lin Yi. Before they parted last time, several of their familiar elders made a bet among their elders on how long Lin Yi's farewell would bring peace to the sect. The special thing about this boy is that he has Chen Bei as his backer. Never imagined. Lin Yi, who actually had nothing to do in this traitor incident, was actually left behind by the boss at the end. Stayed in the Supreme Mountain? Although the three elders were full of doubts, they did not dare to stay and ask more questions. They went their separate ways and left the Supreme Mountain as quickly as possible. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 906. Yulin took a deep breath. There was no one else on the platform. But the air around her was so surprised that it was almost solid, making Yulin feel depressed in her chest and unable to breathe smoothly. In front of my eyes. The mountain wall automatically split open on both sides, and a white-haired woman slowly walked out of the mountain wall. Looking from a distance, the white-haired woman had a beautiful face and looked young, but the intuitive impression the woman gave Yulin could not be compared to young. It's not a matter of appearance, but that when the woman approaches, there is a faint aura of decay in her steps and under her brows. When she raised her eyes, deep in those dark eyes, there was a smell called vicissitudes of life that hit her face. She is the supreme head of Tianjian sect. The ceiling among today's Qigong practitioners. What makes Yulin feel most uncomfortable is that he tried his best to see the leader's face clearly. But after looking at it for a while, he squinted until his eyes swelled and hurt, and in the end he could only come up with a subjective impression like it looks pretty. But if he was asked to describe the appearance of the leader in detail, he couldn't describe it no matter what. There was only a hazy outline in his mind, like a mosaic. We are of the same generation, but why do we feel that Lao Chen's personality is so different? Yulin secretly criticized Chen Bei in her heart. Chen Bei looked like a bad old man, and even Jian Nanchun was fooled. As for the white-haired leader, one could tell at a glance that it was the ceiling, and he was completely different from Lao Chen. Are you Lin Yi? The leader came to Yulin and asked nonsense. Yes. Yulin was secretly vigilant, but the next second, the leader's hand actually touched Yulin's face. Yulin was stunned. So fast. Even if he is not at his peak at the moment, not just anyone can touch him. Unexpectedly, he was touched in the blink of an eye. Yulin's muscles and nerves were all tense. Her eyes were glaring at first and then narrowed slightly as the leader caressed her face. Yulin didn't dare to move around without knowing what the other party was going to do to her. It would be bad if everyone misunderstood. The leader seemed to really just want to touch it. After a few seconds, the leader's cold hand moved away from Yulin's face, placed it behind him again, and sighed. You're not like him. Yulin was silent. The leader quickly turned around and left a sentence to Yulin's confused face. Reincarnation has been broken, you can't be him. After all, the Tathagata master walked far away in the blink of an eye, just like when he arrived, and his walking path was mysterious and unpredictable. Yilin was dumbfounded. That's it? Ah no, don't you want to ask about the immortal killing spear? When he was in the cave, he killed Chao Rushuan with one Zi Fa Thunder Surge. Didn't you ask? Don't you doubt it? Be a little more dedicated. You are the leader. Why don't you investigate the disciples with unknown origins? At least ask a few questions. The strange behavior of the head of Tianjian sect made Yilin stupid. He also thought of many reasons and how to deal with it. He didn't expect the other party and didn't care at all. Far away, the closed mountain wall cracked open again, and the leader, as elegant as when he came, completely disappeared before Yilin's eyes. After a while, Chen Bei is here. He looked at the deserted mountain wall with a complicated expression, came behind Yilin, held Yilin's collar, and sighed softly. I know you have a lot of doubts, so let's go first. It's not advisable for the master to stay in Kingxiu land for a long time. Chen Bei said, without waiting for Yilin to answer, he lifted Yilin away with a hiss. The two of them were flying over the fairy island. Yilin was involuntarily lifted into Chen Bei's hand. He simply did not resist and remained in mid-air with his legs crossed and his chin in his hand, lost in thought. There was something odd about the whole thing. She seemed to think of me as someone at first. She thinks I'm the reincarnation of someone. But actually, it's obviously not. The difference is so big that you can see it on your face. Damn it, who are you looking down on? After Yilin figured it out, she felt a little angry. When Chen Bei took Yilin back to the handyman class, it was already sunset. Chen Bei seemed to be in a bad mood and kept silent during the whole journey. In the handyman class, the scenery remains the same, but things and people have changed. Several more disciples were promoted and registered, escaping from the misery of the handyman class. There were also several newcomers who were still sweating and chopping wood outside the house when Yilin and Chen Bei pretended to be fine and went into the small wooden house from another place. Their hands were bruised by the blunt axes. Bubble. Here. People come and go, but Chen Bei remains. Chen Bei stopped pretending now. With a snap of his fingers, a wave of turbulence appeared, and a simple blinding formation was used to isolate the outer perimeter. The two of them were sitting outside Chen Bei's wooden house. The other disciples in the handyman class turned a blind eye to Chen Bei and Yilin. Chen Bei walked out of the house carrying 2 bottles of wine. Come on, kid, have a drink with Lao Chen. Chen Bei grinned, and because he smiled too hard, the crow's feet around his eyes looked particularly deep. Yilin took a deep look at Chen Bei and secretly thought that this old guy has something on his mind. So he could only risk his life to accompany Lao Chen, and said with a helpless smile, okay, I'll stop after getting drunk. Well, you can rest after getting drunk. Chen Bei was in a good state and did not deliberately use his cultivation to resist the drunkenness. After drinking for 3 rounds, Chen Bei blushed, poked Yilin's forehead, and said with a smile. Boy, you will gain a lot from this trip. Ahem, just average, just top grade. Bah. Tinpin. You may not even be able to fool Xiaoji Un'er, but you are here to fool me, Lao Chen. Yilin was stunned when he heard this. Lao Chen knew what he had taken, and there was no reason for the leader to not know. Or is it that at their level, they no longer care about magic weapons? Is the magic weapon just an external possession? So hypocritical? With a slightly stunned expression on his face, Yilin flipped his hand and took out the Xian spear. After the immortal killing spear was shrunk, it was 7 feet and 2 inches long, which was a bit longer than Yilin's height. There were faint mottled bloodlines on the body of the gun, revealing a sinister aura. When the immortal killing spear appeared, the red tassel was like flowing blood, automatic without wind. There were 3 sharp blood grooves engraved on the tip of the spear. It looked like it was not a kind weapon. Hiss. When Yulin showed off the immortal killing spear, Chen Beiju also woke up a little. He subconsciously took a few steps back and said sternly, put it away quickly. Yulin quickly put it away and let the immortal killing spear float on the spiritual sea again, keeping company with the rusty sword. Chen Bei breathed a long sigh of relief after seeing Yulin put away the immortal killing spear. It is indeed this fierce weapon. Legend has it that 3,000 years ago, this fierce weapon disappeared during the battle with the Black Wind Sand Sea. There are rumors that, the fierce soldier had a spirit and escaped from the endless sea. Unexpectedly, this gun was still left in the cave sky of the Black Wind and Sand Sea. As expected, you know the origin of this immortal killing spear. This guy's name is the immortal killing spear? How do you know? Is there really a spirit in it? When Yulin said the name of the immortal killing spear, Chen Bei looked at Yulin in surprise, very surprised. Ahem, no, I'm also surprised that this gun seems to have no aura. But in the cave, when I accidentally touched this gun, the bloody word Zhu Xian flashed in my mind for no reason, and blood rushed to my face. He came and looked particularly domineering, so I guessed that this magic weapon might be called Zhu Xian. This reason was that on the way back, Yulin prepared to deal with the leader's questioning, but she didn't expect that it would fall on Chen Bei in the end. To be honest, Yulin was unwilling to lie about Chen Bei. But Yulin couldn't explain some of the origins of the apostles at all, so she could only use this specious explanation. If you insist on it, it seems to be correct. Aren't the attributes written clearly? This is called talking skills, not deception. When Chen Bei heard the words, he suddenly realized that he believed it. Tisk, I didn't expect that you and this soldier would have such a fate. It seems that this is fate. Chen Bei poured a sip of wine into his mouth, shook his head and said, it's true. But after a while, Chen Bei's eyes became a little worried, and he slowly told the origin of this murderous weapon. However, I don't know whether it is a blessing or a curse that you have a fate with this murderous weapon. How do I say this? You don't know something. This fierce weapon is said to defeat the master. Moreover, it will kill Rick. I am stupid. When Yulin heard this, he suddenly realized. Why does it turn out that the Tianxia Lone Star written in the ambiguous and unclear restrictions column of Earth Zhu Xian means this? Kill yourself. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 907. Judging from the name, Zhu Xian, isn't it about killing immortals? What does it have to do with me? 3 seconds later, Yulin accepted the fact that he was the master, but still couldn't help but complain. Isn't that right? Chen Bei obviously felt that Lin Yi's words were reasonable. He nodded and continued, immortals can't stand it, let alone humans. Yulin. Chen Bei drank too much, but he didn't mention his story. Obviously, Yulin is not blind. There is a story between Chen Bei and his junior sister, the head of the Supreme Sect. And it's probably a story not suitable for children. But Lin Yi is an adult, right? So Yulin took advantage of the drunkenness, hooked Chen Bei's shoulder, and poked Chen Bei's waist with the mouth of the wine bottle, hoping to gossip. But Chen Bei was not completely drunk, and remained tight-lipped. Yulin was a little disappointed. The more Chen Bei didn't say anything, the more curious Yulin became. Wait a moment. If there is a story between Chen Bei and the leader, then what about the master Huayan from Yanmo Mountain? Unrequited love for Chen Bei? It's scary to think about it. Since they couldn't tell their story, Yulin simply asked about the origin of the Xian spear. That's fair to say. Chen Bei changed his expression. It turns out that it is the legend of ancestors and ancestors. 3,000 years ago, there was a young genius who accidentally obtained the immortal killing spear. Like Yulin, he was recognized by the immortal killing spear. With the immortal killing spear, he became famous in the circle of Suanmen monks. In later generations, he was known as Zhang Lao Mo. but he was extremely ruthless in his attacks, leaving corpses all over the place at every turn. He made countless enemies from all sides, including evil, demons and Buddhas. One day, in order to kill this beast and bring peace to the world, the three evil spirits, Buddha and the three realms met with Zhang Laomo on the top of the Yan Snow Mountain in the past. In that battle, a full 3,000 monks participated. Just like the story that Brother Jian heard, in that battle, the Yuanying old monster was everywhere, the golden elixir monks were not as good as dogs, and the 3,000 monks did not respect martial ethics. Beat the old devil Zhang. The sky and the earth were darkened, the sun and moon had no light, and the stars were dim. The mighty power of 3,000 monks caused snow-capped mountains to collapse, tsunamis to rise, and the earth to crack. However, Zhang Laomo slaughtered more than 2,900 monks with just one shot, staining the sky with blood. In the end, old demon Zhang fell into the snowy mountain. And that stretch of snow-capped mountains, after thousands of years, turned into today's black wind and sand sea. His master-eating magic weapon was also left behind in that battle and disappeared. After hearing Yilin's story, he secretly cursed. 3,000 people surrounded and attacked him. Who can withstand it? What a devourer! Through Lao Chen's few words, Yilin could almost imagine the grand battle. Tisk, Empress Jiju left 6 magic weapons in the past. You get one. Whether you defeat the master or not, it is a great opportunity. Although Chen Bei was worried, it was pointless to worry now that the matter had come to this. He could only tell Yilin to learn to be kind to others in the future and not to follow in the footsteps of Mr. Zhang. While Yilin was drinking a small drink, he mentioned the person he saw in the cave. What he wanted to ask was whether the strange man growing together with the vines was the old devil Chen Bei mentioned. When Chen Bei heard this, he immediately sneered and shook his head in denial. If that person is really Zhang Laomo, and the immortal killing spear is right next to him, can that person still be trapped by a mere vine for 3,000 years? How can it be? Chen Bei didn't believe it. Later, the two of them thought about it and speculated that the man was probably a demon monk who survived the war 3,000 years ago. I will ask my junior sister to send a few elders to explore the Black Wind Sand Sea another day. Don't let the evil cultivator of the demon sect who has lived for 3,000 years be reborn and harm the common people. Although Chen Bei didn't care about things, he was very conscious. Even when he was drunk, he did not forget to put this matter on the agenda. The two of them drank together and spent the whole night together. There is no airtight wall in the world. Although there is no concrete evidence that Chao Rushuan is a traitor, Yilin has heard a lot of rumors in the past few days. It is an ironclad fact that Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan were imprisoned in the Discipline Mountain. In addition, Yilin inquired secretly and did not hear any rumors about herself from inside the door, so she finally felt relieved. Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan were placed in solitary confinement and were not allowed to have contact with the outside world. Yu Qingying, Xia Xiaoman, and Li Qianqian seemed to be tight-lipped about what happened that day. No one knows for the time being that Lin Yi defeated Chao Rushuan in a head-on fight with his 5th-level Naki strength, and no one knows that Lin Yi obtained a magic weapon left behind by the Kiju Empress. Of course, as long as Chen Bei and the headmaster don't mention the latter matter, others will probably not know about it. Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian, who were present that day, might just suspect that the magic weapon Lin Yi obtained was not just a mere heavenly item. But in the current circle, heaven-grade magic weapons are already the limit that they can access, and beyond that, it is not a level that ordinary monks can touch. The story of old demon Zhang told by Chen Bei has been sung into different versions over 3,000 years. Among the younger generation, such as Jian Nanchun, they only know that a battle between good and evil broke out in the Black Wind and Sand Sea. But he didn't know the specific situation, he didn't know Zhang Laomo, and he didn't know the immortal killing spear. God. After this incident, the most commendable thing about him and Lin Yi was still the fact that all the elders jointly became a named disciple. Later, when Yi Lin had nothing to do, she went to the handyman class to chat with Chen Bei. When Chen Bei saw Yi Lin, he frowned and mentioned the follow-up of Hefeng Shaha. A moment later, "Can't find that person." Yi Lin was stunned. "Yes, junior sister's divine sword Tong Seeing seems to have wiped out everything." "Impossible," Yi Lin immediately shook his head. He recalled the scene where the two were evenly matched that day. That weird guy may be an old monster that survived 3,000 years ago. "I don't think it's that easy to die." "Will the leader fight with that person?" "The Battle of Tricks has revealed another hidden cave." "Do you think that Dongtian is the fairy grass in Old Man Yes garden that grows when it grows and pulls out when it grows?" Hearing this, Chen Bei couldn't laugh or cry. "In short, forget it if you can't find it. It's not peaceful outside now." "What do you mean, junior sister?" "Yes, when the dynasty changes, if it is not the disaster of annihilation of the common people, we monks of Tianjian sect should not go down the mountain at will, lest we be contaminated with too much karma and killing, and it will not be of much benefit to our practice." Yi Lin said a few words casually, then said goodbye to Chen Bei and left. Regarding Chen Bei's remarks, he always felt that something was wrong. The weirdo was obviously bound to the immortal killing spear for some reason and was unable to move. Was it because he pulled out the immortal killing spear that he ran out? Or maybe, the cave is actually a cage trapping the weirdo, and as the immortal killing spear is pulled out, the cage collapses on its own? Although Yi Lin felt that this matter might not have much to do with her. But that weirdo had been guarding the immortal killing spear for 3,000 years, and Yi Lin now had the immortal killing spear. Although no one else could take it away, the feeling that someone outside seemed to be eyeing her with covetousness made Yi Lin feel quite uncomfortable. Every time he thought about the man without clothes, he always felt uncomfortable. A few days later, Yi Lin came to the Commandment Mountain. By chance, Bai Taixin was teaching Xia Xiaoman the basic sword control skills of Tianjian style. After not seeing each other for a few days, Xia Xiaoman's hair had grown a little longer, his sword fingers were aligned, his flying sword was shining with cold light into the sky, his appearance was heroic, and he looked like a master. "Pang Bai, ahem, registered disciple Lin Yi has met Elder Bai." In the courtyard, flowers are blooming. Bai Taixin turned around with a slightly chubby belly and a dark face. "What did you call me just now?" "Elder Bai." Yi Lin blinked with a cute expression. "Tisk, I accidentally let it slip." Although Bai Taixin overheard a word fat that he usually didn't like to hear, Yi Lin changed her tune very quickly, and Bai Taixin couldn't catch him, so he had to ask with a dark face, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to visit my junior sister." Yi Lin pointed at Xia Xiaoman, who was practicing hard on his sword. It seems that Xia Xiaoman, who broke through the Qi receiving realm, entered the Qi training realm, and even obtained the spiritual flying sword Frost Snow in a short period of time, made Bai Taixin see her potential and plan to cultivate it carefully. Xia Xiaoman was happy when he heard this. "Really? That's not too true." Yi Lin looked at Bai Taixin again. "This disciple wants to visit senior sister Chao." Laugh. On the side, Xia Xiaoman dug a bottomless golf hole into the ground with his Frost Snow sword. "No," Bai Taixin said coldly, "Chao Rushuan violated the sex rules and was imprisoned for 3 years without being allowed to see anyone. This is an order from the master." "Yes, yes," Xia Xiaoman said loudly while wielding the Frost Snow sword roughly. "Senior sister Chao Rushuan is locked in the 6th grotto at the bottom of the 6th mountain. Senior brother, please don't break the rules and barge in as you please." Yi Lin and Bai Taixin were stunned at the same time and looked at Xia Xiaoman. Xia Xiaoman said seriously, "Master, I will warn him for you." "Great job, junior sister." "Okay, since Elder Bai has said so, disciple Lin Yi, please retire first." Yi Lin suppressed her laughter and ran away as soon as Bai Taixin reacted. Then that night, Yilin easily slipped into the Commandment Mountain again. He had stepped a little better during the day, and the restrictions in the Commandment Mountain were in vain for him. Turn right after exiting the courtyard, and there is the sixth grotto from the bottom at the bottom of the sixth mountain. Yilin followed Xiaozuomen's words during the day and easily found the grotto where Chao Rushuan was imprisoned. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 908. Yilin still doesn't know whether the full moon over Xiandao is the real moon or just an illusion hanging in the sky. In short, the moon is round, white and big, which is quite ornamental. The moonlight was pleasant, it was night, and Yilin came to the Commandment Mountain again. Being able to find the destination so easily must be attributed to junior sister Xia. Such smart and witty junior sisters are rare these days. The Commandment Mountain is responsible for the strict rules and regulations within the section at the back mountain. There are 12 peaks. There are grottos on the peaks to imprison Tianjian sect disciples who violate the rules. Why use mountains to press it? Legend has it that many years ago, there was a great monkey demon who was kept under a mountain for 500 years, but later he became honest. Somehow this tradition has been continued to this day from many generations of heads ago. Chao Rushuan was currently in one of the grottos, meditating with her eyes closed, her expression peaceful and peaceful. It gave the impression that rather than saying that she was being imprisoned, it was better to say that she was in retreat. The grotto used to confine illegal disciples was formed by forcibly hollowing out the inside of the mountain wall. Don't ask about the construction process, Yilin doesn't know. But there are many types of spells, and Yilin can probably guess them. Under the moonlight, Yilin came to the rock fence silently. The fence is right at the foot, very low. Inside the fence, there is a dim light from an oil lamp, and the reflections of the fence are swaying from side to side like a demon dancing wildly. Senior sister, you are fine. Yilin stretched out her foot and tapped the stone fence lightly with the toe of her boot. It's you. Yilin walked like a cat without making any sound. In addition, Yilin was a monk and a master of stealth. It wasn't until the dull tapping sound of do came into the grotto that Chao Rushuan, who was meditating with his eyes closed, suddenly realized that an old friend was visiting, and his breath was suddenly confused. SHH. Keep your voice down. Why did you come? Chao Rushuan calmed down instantly and closed his eyes again. The slightly trembling palms facing the sky and flat on his knees, stopped shaking after a while. Sister, you are asking knowingly. Yilin sat down cross-legged in front of the mountain. There was only a thin mountain wall between Chao Rushuan. While asking this question, Yilin looked around. In the dark, he discovered many formations to isolate spiritual energy. To be honest, Chao Rushuan meditated inside, which had no effect at all. This is a place specially used to confine monks, and it has all the functions it should have. Of course, if it was used to imprison him, it wouldn't be possible. If the master asks you to ask, Chao Rushuan, I have nothing to say. Chao Rushuan's tone was unusually smooth, like a pool of stagnant water. I'm just curious. Yilin smiled and said, I hope senior sister will answer your questions. I have no answer. Chao Rushuan still said the same words, looking like a dead pig who is not afraid of boiling water. Yilin thought for a while and decided to show her cards. Senior sister, there is no need for you to regard me as a disciple of Tianjian section today. I am not here for anyone in Tianjian sect, I am only here for the curiosity in my heart. When Yilin's voice sounded again, it echoed in the narrow grotto. Chao Rushuan was suddenly shocked and turned around in shock. With her cultivation as a golden core cultivator, even if she was trapped in this grotto, she would not be so weak that she would be ignorant. But at this moment, she was unaware of the mysterious way Lin Yi used to enter the cave and stand behind her. Facing Chao Rushuan's surprised look, Yilin regarded the grotto as her own home and sat down casually in a corner, leaning against the wall, with most of her face plunged into darkness. Lin Yi thinks that in the cave, when the two of them fought, they also had some doubts, which also appeared in senior sister's mind. How about we make a deal? Chao Rushuan's eyes flashed, and after pondering for a moment, she asked, how to trade? Everyone asks a question. It's a voluntary principle. If you want to say something, you can say it. If you don't want to say it, don't say it. It's fair. How about it? Chao Rushuan was silent for a long time. Finally, she looked deeply at the young man whose expression was hidden in the darkness, as full of mystery as he himself, and said, yes. Yilin guessed correctly. The two of them fought in the cave. Junior brother Lin Yi, who was only in the Qi stage, was able to technically knock her out in one face-to-face. This was an incredible thing in itself. As one of the elites of the younger generation, Chao Rushuan could not help but be curious about the reason. This reason can be put simply, dissatisfaction. If you are not convinced, come and argue. Yilin's deal directly touched Chao Rushuan's heart. As a result, the two began to argue with each other. First, it's Lin Yi's turn. Whoever goes first and who comes last, whoever goes up and who goes down, Lin Yi always won't suffer. Respecting the elderly and loving the young is the traditional virtue of the Daqian dynasty. Let me ask first, when did senior sister Chao learn that there was another cave in the Black Wind and Sand Sea? At the beginning, Yilin asked a harmless question. About 15 years ago. So, junior brother Lin, Chao Rushuan followed closely, who are you? Oh, Yilin was happy when she heard this question. My surname is Lin, I was born on January 1st in Qingnu village under Qingnu mountain in the Jishan calendar. I am unmarried and single. Ask my senior sister again, 15 years ago, how did senior sister Chao discover that cave heaven paradise? Yilin's Tai Chi-like answer made Chao Rushuan helpless, but he couldn't help it. When it was Yilin's turn to ask questions, Chao Rushuan suddenly fell silent. Yilin originally thought that Chao Rushuan was unwilling to answer, but she didn't expect that after the silence, Chao Rushuan stared at the young man in the darkness in a dreamy tone. 15 years ago, I carried out the mission of my sect to hunt down a monster who was killing and causing chaos in the world. At that time, the sect would treat this kind of mission as a training for the disciples, and use it to evaluate each one. The talent and qualifications of a disciple. The big monster massacred 16 villages and ate a total of 361 people. I chased him all the way into the Black Wind and Sand Sea. At that time, I was young and energetic and didn't know how to advance or retreat. I encountered a black sandstorm in the Black Wind and Sand Sea. Unintentionally, I arrived at the cave. At this point, Chao Rushuan's lips curled up slightly, as if he was a little proud. He stopped deliberately and asked, who are you? I don't believe you are Lin Yi, or in other words, I don't believe you are the Lin you say you are. While you were doing odd jobs in the handyman class, my master, Elder Bai once sent his disciples down the mountain to investigate your past. They found that your past was innocent and ordinary. But what you practiced was not the Tianjian sex technique. Yilin smiled and said, is this a question? I can answer it. As he spoke, Yilin stretched out a hand and waved it gently in front of Chao Rushuan. Suddenly, the air in the almost airtight grotto circulated and gathered into bunches of biting wind around Lin Yi. In an instant, the sound of howling wind echoed in the grotto, which made Chao Rushuan's face change slightly. Yilin continued, this is my family's secret technique, cloud body wind body technique. The wind follows the tiger, the cloud follows the dragon, the wind leads to thunder, and the cloud entwines lightning. This is an incomplete technique, but in the sky in the sword sect, After reading many martial arts techniques within the sect, I used this knowledge to complete the incomplete skills inherited from my family. Yilin stretched out an index finger and tapped her head. You don't have to believe it, but what you can't deny is that people and people's qualifications cannot be generalized. It's a pity that, I am a genius, an out-and-out genius. Yilin's words made Chao Rushuan depressed and wanted to vomit blood. As the saying goes, the rise of a genius always comes at the expense of countless mediocrities as stepping stones. Chao Rushuan prides herself on being one of the best in the family, but unexpectedly she becomes a stepping stone for others. When Chao Rushuan was depressed, Yi and Lin had a conversation and found that they were both doing Tai Chi, which was too inefficient. After asking around, I can't seem to find any key points. Yi Lin decided to use his trump card. It doesn't matter whether the routine is old or not, what's important is that it works well. Then, Yilin took out another bunch of mother and mother nails from her arms and found one of them. He has already given away a lot of this stuff. If every pin is said to be a mobile phone with one-way communication, the mobile phones he now gives away are more than his magic weapons. Each female nail had to be engraved with a different name as a mark so that Yilin could tell them apart. For example, this one belongs to Tigress, this one belongs to King Jenice, this one belongs to Junior Sister, this one belongs to Jian Nanshun, and this one belongs to Chao Rushuan. Some have been given away, and some have not yet been given away, but in order to collect wool, what should be given will always be given out. Only by being prepared can you be safe. Chao Rushuan looked at Yilin's weird movements and didn't know why. Junior brother, this is my special magic weapon, the mother-in-law nail. If you put it in your arms, it will not be detected by anyone. Look, junior brother can come and leave whenever he wants in this broken grotto. Likewise, we must take senior sister Chao with us. It's easy to get out. Yilin's words made Chao Rushuan's expression change. Just as she was about to shake her head and refuse, Yilin said again, Senior sister, there is no need to refuse in a hurry. I know that senior sister Chao prides herself on being innocent and has no illicit liaison with the devil. But in case it is used woolen cloth. Chao Rushuan remained silent and put away the mother-in-law nails. Only then did she discover that the word mean had been engraved on the nail. Ahem, sorry, I gave it to the wrong one. Yilin looked calm and quickly removed a wooden nail with the word frost. Junior brother is actually not interested in the grudges between good and evil. Junior brother is only curious about one thing. Who is that person? Why is he in the secret realm of the Black Wind Sand Sea, and why is he guarding that ancient gun? Yilin smiled, by the way, there is something that senior sister may not know. Just a few days ago, Elder Bai has sent people to explore the Black Wind Sand Sea again. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 909. What? After hearing this, Chao Rushuan finally lost his composure and his voice trembled. Konglu, he. Oh, Yilin smiled half-heartedly, that person's name is Konglu. What a weird name. This guy really doesn't know how to take names. Chao Rushuan asked with a trembling voice, how is he? Yo. Sure enough, there is something fishy. Yilin thought that was indeed the case, and nodded secretly, why don't you answer junior brother's question first? In this case, don't blame him for not practicing martial ethics. As usual, Yilin shamelessly began to threaten. Secretly, he secretly wore the disciplinary armband of the disciplinary committee, which could increase his persuasiveness without thinking. To be honest, after Yilin's strength increased, many props were gradually eliminated by Yilin and were not of much use. But props are really easy to use. In Yilin's storage space, there are also a lot of Hell Ramen, Kaita cloaks, scene cards, Xiaoshizan brand ancient swords, high-end slingshots, Cybertron gentlemen, and other props, which he has almost forgotten. Piled up in the corner of the storage space. Use it only when you remember it, Forget it if you can't remember it. Human beings should not rely too much on external things. While thinking silently, Yilin tightened the armband on her shoulder with force from left to right, lest it slip off due to her thin arms. Under the influence of various factors, Chao Rushuan's tenacious determination was finally loosened and shaken. Chao Rushuan continued the previous story and said slowly, "I met him in that cave. He said his name was Konglu. Then, the big demon who also entered the cave by mistake was killed by a date he threw in the blink of an eye." When Yilin heard this, he suddenly realized. He had previously thought that Konglu was targeting him. Turns out it's not. He actually has the embarrassing habit of jujube. It's so unhygienic. Yilin felt angry and dissatisfied. Chao Rushuan continued. He recognized where I was from immediately. He smiled and said, "Oh, it turns out he is a kid from Tianjian section." Yilin asked curiously, "What then? Did he throw dates at you?" Lost. Chao Rushuan lowered his head, "My sword was broken." As expected, people cannot be treated in the same way. When he drew the gun, the opponent clearly aimed at his heart and threw the dates. Facing Chao Rushuan 15 years ago, that strange uncle named Zonglu would definitely show mercy. Looking at Chao Rushuan's beautiful face, Yilin didn't want to ask why. The attribute charm value, if taken seriously, can even affect a person's life or death. Chao Rushuan paused for a moment, sighed softly, and continued. My sword was broken. I couldn't get out of the cave, so I had to stay. This stay is for 3 months. I was afraid of him at first because he was obviously not a righteous person. But later, I discovered that he would ask me about things outside the cave from time to time. What year is it now? Who will be the leader of Tianjian sect? Such questions. I found that he was lonely. After Chao Rushuan opened her chatterbox, she seemed to be a different person. She, who had always been taciturn, showed her talkative side in front of Yilin for the first time, like a professional storyteller. One day, I tried to find a way to escape from the cave. When I went out, I accidentally saw him entangled with 2 vines. It's funny to say that he was actually playing a fighting game with 2 vines out of boredom. Later, I knew that he seemed to have no intention of taking my life, so I became bolder and asked him how to leave that place. He said at that time, "Do you want to leave? If you want to leave, just practice. I will teach you." I remember, a vague smile appeared on Chao Rushuan's face and Xiaofei's cheeks. I stubbornly said at that time that I didn't want to practice magic and betray my master. He said that he also knows Taoist techniques. Under his guidance, my cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. In the cave, I easily formed a golden elixir. He even understands the Buddhist practices. He told me that the Buddhist, Taoist, and demonic practices may seem to be different paths, but in fact they lead to the same goal. If we can combine the 3 practices of Buddhism, Taoism, and demonism, we will be able to create "Here comes a technique that will shock the world and make ghosts and gods cry." Based on Tao and demon, guided by neutral and peaceful Buddhist techniques, the 2 techniques of Tao and demon compete with each other. Chao Rushuan seemed to have thought of something, and her reddish face suddenly turned pale. She slowly raised her right hand, covering it. A wisp of green will-o'-the-wisp, with a strange aura, appeared in Chao Rushuan's palm. Chao Rushuan confided her feelings to a stranger outside Konglu for the first time in her life. After saying all the above, she breathed a long sigh of relief, looked at Yilin, and said softly, "Junior brother Lin Yi, this is me, the biggest secret," etc. Yilin held her chin, lost in thought. For a long time. Thinking about it? Yilin was a little unsure, so he used more implicit words to tentatively ask, "You admire him?" Replacing admiration with admiration is really subtle. When Chao Rushuan was talking about Konglu, the look in her eyes was like that of a young girl embracing spring, even a non-blind person could see it. Yulin suddenly remembered senior brother Jian, who talked about junior sister Chao all day long. This is no longer a matter of danger or danger. But senior brother Jian was gone immediately. A total loss. If brother Jian's destiny could be embodied, it would definitely be a green light full of hope. Hearing this, Chao Rushuan nodded calmly, "Yes, I am both a teacher and a friend." "So that's it," Yulin sighed, not for Chao Rushuan, but for poor senior brother Jian. Senior sister said, "Although junior brother cannot empathize with her, she can understand it." "However, you haven't answered junior brother's question yet. You said, why did that person, Konglu, guard that ancient spear for, how many years?" 3,000 years ago, he was almost immortal and immortal," Chao Rushuan said. "I once asked him why he didn't leave here. He smiled and said that 3,000 years ago, he had a fierce battle with a master named Zhang Laomo. They were fighting and accidentally broke the stone tablet left by the Kiju Empress. No one expected that the stone tablet could be broken, so he was cursed by the stone tablet." Under Yulin's shocked eyes, Chao Rushuan truthfully stated the answer that Yulin cared about most. He said that after he broke the stone tablet, he was trapped there and could not leave for the rest of his life. The meaning of his existence was to wait for someone. Chao Rushuan raised his head with piercing eyes, as if he wanted to see through junior brother Lin Yi. He replaced the wordless monument left by Empress Kiju, waiting for the destined person who is destined to come look for the monument. Yulin left from the front of the grotto. It was already late at night when the moon was shining on the branches. He was completely confused. "When I went there I was relaxed, but when I came back I was full of doubts." After Chao Rushuan revealed her biggest secret, Yulin did not hide it and truthfully told Konglu to leave. Chao Rushuan was visibly relieved. The amount of information Chao Rushuan gave was too much. First, Chao Rushuan is actually a prodigy with the three skills of Buddhism, Taoism, and Demon. When he and Chao Rushuan were fighting, because of her scruples, she didn't use other skills, so she let the situation go. Second, there was a message written by Xiao 11 that was supposed to be in the Black Wind and Sand Sea, but it was shattered. But Xiao 11 seemed to have predicted this possibility in advance, so she left a backup plan to let the man lie forever in that way, trapped in place, waiting for Yulin to come. Yulin came up too, but she didn't have time to ask. The leader came too quickly at that time. "In this case, I have to go back to the Black Wind Sand Sea to find Konglu." When Yulin returned to the handyman's hut with a frown, she passed by Chen Bei's room, where he could hear the sounds of snoring and a strong smell of alcohol. In the past few days, Chen Bei has been drinking to drown his sorrows. Mysterious. A plump crane was loitering outside the wooden hut fawningly. When it saw Yulin coming, it quickly flapped its wings, spun in 7 or 8 postures in the air, and jumped into Yulin's arms to act coquettishly. "Good guy, your habits are like those of a dog." Yulin threw some snacks and sent Xiaoqing away, then locked herself in the wooden house. He actually had a house on every hilltop, but he just changed it a few times. In the end, he still felt comfortable staying in the handyman class. After all, it was extra safe with Chen Bei waiting nearby. Even if Chen Bei is drunk, no one can act wild in front of the most senior. Yulin wished she could just slip out of the mountain and go to the Black Wind and Sand Sea. But now, since half of Chao Rushuan's secret was exposed, the door was filled with cries, and it was difficult for Yulin to break through the defense formation outside the fairy island without being discovered by anyone. While feeling depressed, Yulin slapped her wrist on her chest, skillfully leaving her body mentally. "When I open my eyes again." Yulin has entered the inner world and is suspended above the spiritual sea.